to share my story. As he said, my name is George Green. Further ado, I'm here from New York City. How many are familiar with Harlem, New York?
Woo!
Alright, there you go. So I'm here from Harlem, New York. I had an interesting but colorful life, to say the least. I grew up, I was raised in a Christian household and raised by my grandmother. I wasn't raised by either one of my parents at the time. I had a chance to grow up with some very strong values and morals based on my grandmother coming from a different generation. She instilled some beautiful things in me, to say the least. But growing up in an urban community that's influenced by poverty, influenced by crime, influenced by different things that kind of it's intriguing without role models in your home. I was never. I don't like to label myself as really one of the bad kids. I was just influenced from peer pressure, the streets. I didn't really have that father figure in my life at the time. My dad was in and out of prison. My dad was a drug dealer himself, and I actually I started to look up to the street guys in my community for validation. You know, these guys had the best cars. These guys had the biggest jewelry and the best jewelry and the watches, and these guys had the most beautiful women that, you know, brothers in my community kind of wanted to. They had the Jordans and you know, they just stand on the block and everybody they just did everything that you kind of wanted to mimic and be like. So over time, I began to, my grandmother worked quite a bit because I have quite a few cousins and she had 6 children, so she was never around. So what happens is my influence became these examples that I'm describing. I started to look for that father figure, or that, I'll say, kind of acceptance. Start roaming the streets, getting into fights, building reputations, started carrying guns, started to just kind of like live a lifestyle that I really didn't have to live, but I started to just embrace that. So as I continued to get out in the street, get into fights, shootouts, started dabbling in the drugs, got arrested quite a few times for multiple things at an early age, I started developing a really poor choices. And from there, my grandmother started becoming really concerned, and I was like, man, I don't really know what I'm going to do with myself. I don't really know if I'm interested in heading off to college. I don't really know what I want to do. I want to stay in the hood. But at this time, I'm losing friends left and right. Friends are now today coming home from prison. I have friends did 20 years plus. I have multiple friends who have been murdered. You know, quite a few friends have left here. I was seeing all the death and jail going on around me, but at the same time, that influence still kind of made you feel married to the block. You're married to your neighborhood. You're married to your friends. You're married to your street. You're like, son, I ain't going nowhere. I'm staying in the hood. You just kind of had that hood mentality, that peer pressure of brothers around you, everybody kind of like doing these things and promoting it without that. My grandmother was a beautiful sister. Mashallah, may Allah bless her and Jannah. But what happened is, she wasn't home a lot. She couldn't be a man. She couldn't teach me how to be a young man. So it was really challenging, and the age difference was really a big difference as well. It's sort of like she's an elder. So how can you teach a young man how to be a man? And there's generational gaps and age differences as well as you're a woman trying to teach me how to be a man. So it was challenging. So at this point, I was always good as an athlete. I was a baseball player. I was excelling in baseball. I was very good in baseball, but I was getting closer and closer to near-death experiences. I was experiencing a lot of brothers jumping me, shootouts, getting robbed, getting jumped by 10 guys in the projects, all types of, you know, just different things you can think of. So at one time, my grandmother's like, we got to get you out. You got to go away to college or something. So eventually, I made a decision to go away to school. Got to college. I brought the same mentality with me to college. Got to college, I got around some of the same group of brothers. We started getting in trouble, fights, guns, shootouts. My college roommate, one of them, he was killed actually while I was in school. He was murdered behind some street stuff. And and that was tough. So from college, I started getting into carrying guns again, and fights, getting into, hurting guys with baseball bats and all kind of stuff. So college wasn't even on my mind at the time, but at the same time, I started thinking like, wow, man, like I'm an athlete. I can't really excel in this sport if I don't get the proper grades, or I continue to get arrested, and I continue to do these foolish things to allow me to be kicked out of my school or the university. So at this point, as an adult, the things you do are more serious now. You're not a teenager anymore. So at this point, you have to be very responsible, because prison is real. And at this point now, my grandmother is beginning to become she's getting older. She's really becoming more stressful. She's not able to handle it anymore. She's like, you know what, you're too old for this, and eventually you're gonna be killed or go to jail. And I'm just like, I don't give a care, and it doesn't matter. I'm from the hood, I'm from the street. It don't matter. I don't care. I die first. I was talking like that, and now, as an athlete, I played baseball through college. That was my sport. I was a very good baseball player, as I said. I started to come back home for the summers, and I started thinking about things after losing my college roommate. I started to intern at multiple record labels for fun. I used it as more as a tool for social needs. It was more like come home, go to the club, through internships, come home, and free music. And as I was sharing earlier, from my perspective, the music is my culture. Where I come from, music is the culture by the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we walk, the way we, our slang, the way we create certain different things that people follow. So that became my culture of my generation. And the music became the way we expressed ourselves in our communities and how we had a voice, because in my community, they're like, nobody listened to you. So you make music to vent, to tell how you feel, and talk about the struggle, you talk about the things you're going through. So these things became appealing. So when I would go home, I would party, hang out, do these internships. And while I was doing these interns, I had no idea that people were actually paying me attention. So inshallah, if you ever intern at any companies, realize that people are watching you. I never had a clue. I had no intentions on working in music. I had no intentions on working with public figures. I had no intentions on any of that. The only thing on my mind was becoming a professional athlete and trying to clean myself up at the time. So from there, 4 years passed, 5 years passed. I graduated from college, alhamdulillah. I actually received an English and psychology degree, and now it's like, what do I do next? I'm back home. Don't realize, I have no idea. Like most college students, once you graduate, you don't really know exactly what your next step is going to be, because many companies don't really, they're afraid to take chances because, yeah, you have the degree, but you don't have the experience, the corporate working experience. So I was like, man, I know I'm not interested in becoming a school teacher, so this is something that I struggled with. But I wanted to do something. So everyone who had known me over the years, the relationships, the circles are very small throughout the music industry. So people started to, hey, brother George, are you finished with school? I'm like, yeah, man, but I don't know what I want to do at this point. So at this point, I started getting people to ask me to take a chance at interviewing at multiple record labels. I'm like, I'm good. An opportunity for Rockefeller Records came up, and that's the label that Jay-Z owned, actually. And I said, you know what, let me give it a shot. I interviewed very close friends of mine, Jim Jones, Cameron, Joel Santana. They were already signed at the label in 1999. We're all from the same community. So I said, you know what, let me do it. Alhamdulillah, they hired me. I got hired in. I started from the ground up. I started in the marketing and promotions department. From marketing and promotions, I started to do assistant national directing, and then from there I became a tour manager. Now, this is where my life took a turn. At this point, financially I became comfortable. Money, jewelry, my lifestyle changed. I started to become very, very financially secure. I was able to help my family, pay my brother's rent in college. I started buying jewelry. At this point, you know, you go to the clubs and you party, you spend $10, $15, $20,000 in a club on just drugs, bottles of liquor, you know, treating everybody. And at this point, beautiful women are everywhere at your disposal. You have countless jewelry, $60,000 chains and $40,000 watches, and you know, carrying around all types of money. This is the lifestyle that started to develop now. So now my ego has changed. Now I'm traveling the world with public figures. My status has increased. The ego is there. I would say the boastfulness and the arrogance. All of these things had developed. So now at this point, you couldn't catch me one day without being drunk, high, you know, beautiful women. Like, all I thought about was women and money at this time, because like I felt like I had found success at this point. So now I'm living this lifestyle I've been in that industry over 15 years, but at this point it was about, I'll say 9 years in. You're just traveling the world. Every single day your life is a party. It's just go to one country, party, concert, women, countless drugs, unlimited alcohol, VIP parties, jewelry, all of these things that people view as success, many non-believers. And over time I was like, wow, like I'm successful. Like, what else is there for me? Like, what's next? And I'm just like, you know, I travel the world with multiple public figures. I travel all over with Kanye West and Jay-Z. I've traveled with Akon. I've traveled with Snoop. I'm just like, man, I got beautiful women here, beautiful women there. What's next? So over time, after so many years of this, I just developed problems all over the place. I was so arrogant and so just kind of egotistical. I developed beef, as we call it, with people everywhere. I developed problems everywhere I went. So at this point now, I couldn't really go many places without a group of people with me. So now at this point, I had everybody with me was ready to cause problems. So I had problems everywhere. Everywhere I went, I had people wanting to hurt me. I had people wanting to kill me because I was very just kind of, I was rude to people. I was just kind of like, I made myself appear inferior to everyone. You know, I wasn't really like approachable. I wasn't really cool because I felt I was successful with the money and the jewelry and the celebrity. So a lot of people hated me at this time. So now I'm rolling with 10, 15 guys everywhere. Everybody got guns. Everybody is just looking for problems. Everyone's felons. Everybody's been in and out of prison. And everybody is, you know, looking for this lifestyle to be kind of like accepted. So now over time, I'm just kind of like, wow, like, you know, I began to feel like I was sick of watching over my back all the time, and sick of like everywhere I went, it was like the things we talked about in this music, people in the street want to test you to make sure that you really live this lifestyle. So everywhere you go, everywhere you went, you got other street cats from these areas. They want to come and they want to test you. They want to tell you what they'll do to you. They want to throw a bottle at you. So it was almost like there was no peace. I was drunk, high. I couldn't even remember half the things I did some of the times because of my, I was so unhappy inside at the time, but I didn't realize it. I did so many drugs, so much drinking, and all of these things I didn't pay for. It was endless, free. So I just abused it, drunk, high every day, and it was one of those things where half of my experiences, honestly, I couldn't even remember or tell you guys. And over time, I started realizing, like, man, like, this is rough, dude. Like, I'm doing this stuff, and like, I'm starting to not feel happy anymore. Everywhere I went, I got to constantly watch out and pay attention to dudes, and I don't know who to trust because guys want to kill me, and guys saying they want to do this, and this guy said I was with his girl, and this, it was just ridiculous. So being drunk and high, you're kind of, you're not thinking properly or clearly as well. So I put myself in a danger zone many times, and Allah spared my life many times because I've had people try to take my life multiple times. And so at this point now I'm starting to question things. I'm asking myself, man, like, there's something missing in my life, but I actually don't know what it is. I got everything somebody can possibly think of at this point. So I said, maybe it's religion. So I started going to my family because I grew up in a Christian home, and I started asking my family about Jesus and the Bible. And I hate to say this, but in my family, how I grew up, my grandmother, she passed away in her 70s, so she grew up in a time where, most of us, we're taught something and we don't question it because this is, our loved ones teach us this, and many of us don't research what we're taught. So for me, I started becoming the black sheep because I started questioning everything. I started going to my family, asking my family, even before I accepted Islam, I used to always ask people about Jesus, peace be upon him. I used to say, man, like, I would ask a family member, hey, what's up with Jesus? Peace be upon him. Oh, he's the Son of God. I go to my grandmother, grandma, so what's up with, oh, this is God, in the human. I'm like, nobody gives me the play. Nobody really gives me clarity, and then I ask for explanations and I ask for proof. You can't prove everything. Everything is faith-based. I get that. Then I would go in and ask people to teach me about the Bible. Now this was just the inquisitive side of me. This was before I had any knowledge of Islam. I was just inquisitive, trying to find something to give me clarity and give me fulfillment, because I was missing substance and I was missing discipline. So no one was ever able to give me anything. It was more or less like, this is what we're taught. Believe in Jesus as your Lord and Savior, the Trinity. That's it. Don't question God. And I'm just like, all right. But I still found absolutely nothing in that. So from that point, arguing with family members because of me questioning things, and arguing with other people and asking pastors and ministers to help me. Everyone always had different answers, and I just couldn't understand. So at this point, I said, you know what, let me try something else. So I started to investigate other religions. I was dealing with West African religions, and I started to deal with studying the Hebrew Israelites. One of my cousins is an Israelite. I started studying that. And at that point, I would go hang out and talk to them. They would stand outside with a monitor in the streets, and they would yell at everybody in passing, oh, you devil, and this and that. They would read the Bible, and it was just kind of destructive to me at that point. I didn't understand. I didn't know enough about it, but I didn't like what I saw. So at that point, I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't really know if this is it. I just didn't find. So I said, I don't really think religion is for me either. So now I'm still living the lifestyle, but I'm actually like kind of trying to take a step out there to find some fulfillment. So I kind of put everything on a back burner. 2006 rolls around. My first trip to the Middle East. I was able to travel with Akon to Dubai. Went to Dubai for the first time, and it's always hilarious when I think about it, because they looked at me and they were like, yo, you're so American. I got gold chains on, and pants sagging, Yankee hat backwards, and I'm just kind of like, boots on, and I'm just like talking slang, and they're like, man, this brother's so American. Like, they look at me like, he's such a rapper, and I'm like, it is what it is. So at that point, I'm just kind of like, man, like, y'all got too many rules in this country, dude. I'm like, I got to go get a license to go have a drink. It was crazy. I was like, man, I could live here, dude. So I started hearing the adhan go off every day, and I'm like, wow, why is this going off throughout the whole city, man? Like everybody don't want to hear that, man. But I was like, it sounds beautiful. I was like, it's kind of intriguing, but at the same time, I'm just like, dude, does everybody have to listen to that? So I was like, I asked the brothers, I was like, man, dude, I don't understand. So one time it went off, and I was intrigued, and I happened to be standing across from a masjid. I don't even remember the name of it, but this one masjid allowed non-Muslims to come and be able to come in if you wanted. I saw everybody going to this inside the masjid, I was like, man, what's going on with this? I'm like, you know, because being from New York, it's millions of Muslims, but, you know, I never paid Muslims no attention. I tell people, like, 9/11, before 9/11, I could care less what Muslims did. I was like, if you ain't had no check for me or you wasn't an attractive girl, I didn't care if you was Muslim. I didn't care if you was a Christian Jew. It really didn't matter. And I'm like, dude, like, I never even paid Muslims no attention. And tons of them in my neighborhood. Like, it wasn't on my radar. I see sisters in hijab all the time. I'm just like, whatever. Like, all right. And I just respected it. But I never had an opinion on Muslims before I was Muslim. I just didn't care. But I saw everybody going over and I was intrigued by it. I'm like, man, like that did sound kind of interesting. So I went to a brother. I said, brother, what is this thing that keep going off like every day? I keep hearing. I think I stayed in Dubai like 2 weeks or something. And the brother said, he explained it. And I said, can I go over here to the mosque to watch you brothers and sisters pray? And he was like, alhamdulillah. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't want to be Muslim. I'm just intrigued by it. I'm just like, what do you do as a Muslim? Like, everybody's so like up in arms and all this Islamophobia. I was just like, I want to understand what you do. So I went in and I stood around and all them brothers coming up to me and they're like, I'm like, brother, I ain't Muslim. Sure, I got my hat on and all. I'm like, dude, you go do whatever you doing. I'm just here to look. So everybody's looking at me strange and I'm just like, yo, I am not Muslim, man. I just want to see what you do. So I watched everybody make salat. I was like, wow, this is amazing because I had never, sujood was the most amazing thing in my that I'd ever seen because I was so used to just praying like, oh, you know, Jesus, you know, send me a bag of money or whatever. That was kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, that was kind of my way. Like, I didn't really like, I was like, yo, these Muslims are putting their face on the ground. I was like, this is crazy. I was like, it was, my grandmother used to always tell me to humble myself, always. So when I saw Muslims making sujood, it stuck with me, and I was like, wow, this is kind of like amazing because of like, that's the most humbling point we can go in the physical, like as living beings, like putting our face to the floor, worshiping our Creator. I was like, wow. So that stuck out in my mind, and it gained entrance, and I was like, wow. I was like, man, I'm kind of curious to learn about that. So I'm a person that likes to dig deeper and ask questions and get involved. So after it was over, I went to my hotel, and there was a brother who, and a sister, they were like working at the elevator. So I went to the brother and I was looking around trying to see if any of my friends were around. I was like, I'm interested in asking about Islam. But I didn't want nobody in my business. I'm like, you know, I don't want nobody to know what I'm doing. So I go over to the brother and the sister. I said, yo, fam. Yo. He like, hey, assalamu alaikum. I'm like, yo, what's up? So I'm like, yo, how do I learn about like Islam, bro? And he was like, mashallah. And I was like, what? And I was like, what? And I was like, he was like, no. So I was like looking around because I was a little embarrassed and insecure about people that I was with, knowing that I was interested. I just was uncomfortable. So at that point, the brother had gave me a few websites to check out. This was 2006. I said, mashallah. I was like, all right, cool. So I was like, what does that mean? So he explained to me, and I was like, cool. I went back to New York, and I was so interested in Islam. I was like, man, I started reading, and I started just basic stuff, just 5 pillars, and you know, just simple things. I didn't go too hard, but my interest continued to grow. And as my interest continued to grow, I started feeling like, man, I'm like, I have to engulf myself into a situation to really understand. I'm a hands-on guy. Reading is not enough. I have to go out and do it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to a mosque. I'm going to do that. So I go to the masjid. Why did I do that? Oh, my goodness. Man, I went to the masjid. I got attacked so bad the first time. Brother, this is haram. Haram, brother, tattoos. Haram, brother, this, that. I'm like, whoa. I'm not Muslim. Whoa, I came to learn about Islam. Every Muslim was coming up to me in my shorts. I had a shirt with no sleeves, and I had on some like thin little basketball shorts, and they was like really giving me a rough time. And I was like, brothers, like, I'm not even Muslim. I came to learn. I said, yo, I ain't coming back here, dude. This is too much. They didn't even give me a chance to explain, though. I walked in and everybody was like, ah, brother, brother, brother. And I was like, oh, man, dude. And I was like, yo, I'm not Muslim, though. And like, but still, you can't. I'm like, dude, if I'm not Muslim, I don't know the rules here. So I said, you know what? I'm out of here. So I left and I was like, I ain't never going back to that place. No mosque. So I felt a little, like, you know, I didn't really like that first approach. So over time, I still felt that I wasn't accomplishing learning what I wanted to learn about Muslims. And I was like, man, I said, you know what? I'm going to try this again. I went to another masjid. This time, I made it clear when I walked in the door. Listen, I am not Muslim. I am not a Muslim, brother. I just want to come here to learn, and I'm interested in, like, Islam or whatever. So brothers kind of eased up because, you know, first time was unexpected. So at that point, brothers were a little more helpful and they weren't as judgmental. So then I started to struggle because I was like, man, everybody's giving me too much advice. I felt overwhelmed with brothers trying to help me. It was like, this whole side of the room was like, brother, 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 you know, this brother, like, brother, give me your phone number. Brother, can I come meet you for lunch? And brother, I was like, dang, dude, like, you brothers is dropping too much on me, man. I'm like, I was like, man, I can't do these masjids, man. It's too much for me, man. I'm like, I'm a baby, man. I'm trying to learn just a little bit, and it was just too overwhelming. But their intentions were there. It was good intentions, but for a person with interest, I couldn't handle it. So I walked away from that again. So at this point, I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm ready for taking on too many Muslims or taking on this mosque thing because it was overwhelming. So I'm like, man, dude. I met a brother, one brother who was a born Muslim, and this brother had dabbled off into the dunya for a while, but he was able to relate to some of the things that I had gone through because he had drifted off and came back, and I explained to him, I said, brother, I'm interested, but I can't find nobody that I could really like just be me without pressuring me to be Muslim. I'm like, I just want to learn. I'm interested with questions, but I felt overwhelmed. So this brother was like, brother, let me try to help. So I stuck with this brother, and over time, you know, years went by, and I'm just kind of like, man, I started noticing Muslims all the time now. I'm looking around, I see Muslims wearing, you know, thobes and all. I'm like, dude, I ain't walking around with them like that. You know? I'm like, man, I'm from New York. I ain't from Saudi Arabia, dog. I'm like, so I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do this, man. And so I started learning more, but I didn't realize the cultural things versus, like, you know, Islamic stuff. So all the Muslims I saw, they all had these big beards with kufis or whatever, the turbans with the thobes on, and I'm just like, man, dude, I'm like, I don't know, this ain't for me, man. I'm like, my community, like, we likes to get fly. I like to wear sneakers, and, you know, I gotta look right. And I was like, nah, I don't know if I can do this, man. So I was just like, man, dude, all my friends would be laughing at me, and I'd be walking around, the only dude in my neighborhood looking like this. I'm like, nah, man, I ain't doing that. So I started to struggle with these things. Then I started to struggle with, like, just all of the cultural stuff. As I asked questions, I started meeting American Muslims, but they all were dressed like this too. I'm like, man, is this how it is when you? I was like, nah, dude. So I put it aside again, and I just couldn't find a balance to my, you know, interest in Islam. So finally, I had a powerful dream that just kind of like made me realize that Islam was really like, it was time for me to accept Islam. The dream was so powerful and so real, and it woke me up, and I still thought that I was in the dream, and the dream was based around Muslims and like just this white, powerful, bright light that I almost couldn't see. And I was like, yo, it was almost like in the dream, I saw a sea of people, of Muslims praying. I couldn't see any faces, just only from the back, making salat. And I was like, yo, what is this? But I couldn't really, I was looking, and it was clearing up, but it was like the white light was so bright, and I could just see hundreds and thousands of just Muslims. Like you're at Hajj or something, and you just see a sea of people, you can't see what's in front of you. And I woke up, I was like, wow, that was crazy. And I have a friend who was also a college friend of mine, who was born Muslim, African-American brother. And I called him and I said, yo, brother, I said, man, dude, I had a dream about Muslims, man, that kind of made me, it was a little scary, but not in a frightening way, but in a way of like, man, Islam is real, dude. I'm like, what do I got to do to become a Muslim? So the brother was like, man, he was so excited. I said, brother, he was living in the Virginia, D.C. area. I said, brother, I'm traveling today. I have a 4-hour layover flying into D.C. How about we meet up and discuss it? So the brother picked me up, and I was frightened. He said, bro, I'm going to take you to the masjid to speak to this imam, the Shahada. I'm like, what's the Shahada like? So he explained it to me. So we got there, and I was like, I got cold feet. I'm like, man, I ain't going in there to do this, man. I'm like, dude, I'm like, this is a life-changing thing here. So I'm still high, drunk. I'm just like, you know, doing everything. So I'm like, I don't think I'm ready. Because at this point, most of us, many of us, I have to say, speak for myself, we look at Islam as when I was a non-believer, I felt like there's too many rules as a Muslim, man. I'm like, I ain't disciplined enough. I like smoking and drinking and partying. I'm like, dude, like, I didn't feel that I was disciplined enough to accept Islam. So many of us, and I know quite a few friends who are influenced by me accepting Islam, who are afraid of that. Their interest is there, but they feel that the rules and restrictions are too much. So at this point, I'm like, man, dude, so like, when I accept Islam, like, what happens? Like, what do I gotta do? And he's like, brother, just take it slow. And I'm like, man, do I gotta walk around in these funny clothes and, you know, acting like I'm from the Middle East and all that? He's like, nah, man. He's like, just be cool. So at this point, I go in. My shit is crowded with brothers and sisters, and I'm like, you know, thank you, bro. I'm like, man, I'm just like, what's next? So basically, long story short with that, I accepted the Shahada, alhamdulillah, and I had a line of brothers. None of these brothers knew my story, but I had a line of brothers that came and welcomed me and hugged me. Brothers was giving me money and, you know, whispering things in my ear. I was like, you know, brothers are hugging me and say different things, and I'm just like, oh, what's going on? Like, so, you know, at this point, I just became so emotional. I fell down and just started crying at this point, and I never felt this way in my life, and I was overwhelmed at how well the brothers embraced me, and even the sisters were sending blessings to me from afar. So I just started crying, and I fell down to the floor, and I always get emotional when I talk about this. Sometimes I cry, so forgive me. But at this point, I'm like, man, now I'm Muslim. So I went on my journey, on my trip, and I went on. So at this point now, I'm officially a Muslim, and so now I'm really, really like involved in learning. But I started to think about my future as a Muslim. I started to think about the responsibilities that I have to embrace and accept as a Muslim. I have to think about people around me who will be influenced by me because of my past and because of my lifestyle that I've once lived. So I started to say, you know what, let me be realistic with myself. Now that I'm Muslim, I know that I don't want to set unrealistic goals for myself to change overnight. So I said, I'm going to continue to party, I'm going to continue to drink and smoke, and I'm going to continue to try to learn, and hopefully, like, over time it goes away. So I would drink, I would get high, get drunk, and smoke, and I'd go to the mosque. And I would tell everybody, I'd go in the masjid, I'd be smelling like weed, marijuana, whatever you guys call it, and I'd have vodka or something on my breath, and I'd say, yo, brother, listen, I'm high and I'm drunk, but I'm coming to the masjid to pray to Allah, and I'm coming to ask for forgiveness, but I'm drunk, I'm high. Like, I've been doing this for years. I took the Shahada a week ago. It don't change overnight. So brothers respected it. I said, brother, I'm high and I'm drunk. Just between me and Allah. Don't bother. Every time I would go, I'm high, I'm drunk. I would always tell them. And as I began to read and learn and study Islam, over time it started slowly going away. So over time, I started maybe drinking and smoking 4 times a week or whatever. Then it got down to maybe 2. Then over time, alhamdulillah, 0 now, nothing. I don't drink, smoke, anything anymore. And, but it took time. I mean, there was no pressure on myself to change because I knew that this would have been a struggle, and I knew that if I did that, I wouldn't be Muslim to this day. I already knew, because the pressure and the accountability would have been like, I would have been thinking like most brothers who are, a lot of us as non-believers were, oh man, the rules and the discipline. But what happened is Islam gave me structure and it gave me discipline. And when I didn't pressure myself, it was easier for me to move on from the drinking and the drugs and the partying and all. It took time, but I was real with myself. I didn't want to pretend just because I'm Muslim now I'm just like, I'm so religious and I'm so like, I didn't want to do that. Because I have met people who are like that, and I personally didn't want to be that way. I wanted to be straight up front with Allah and say, listen, I have problems. Like I drink, I do drugs, and I party, you know, all of that stuff. So when I would go, I made sure brothers knew so nobody would be like, brother, are you drinking, are you smoking? Yeah, I have. It is what it is. So over time, alhamdulillah, like I said, those things were removed from me, and I started to really become active in communities. I don't know if any of you follow my fan page at all. Anybody in here, by show of hands, follow my fan page? Okay, a few of you. So you see how active I am. You know, and right now, you know, I'm no scholar. I'm not here to you know, preach hadiths to you. I'm not here to do any of that. I'm here to simply share my story. And as a new Muslim, you know, Allah has just blessed me to be, you know, really active and productive as a Muslim as I learn. And I do a lot of community stuff. As he said, I've been in close to 80 countries. I've been all over the world helping Muslims. I've been to Cambodia helping poor Muslims. I've been to Vietnam. I've been to just multiple parts of Africa. And I've just come back from Jerusalem maybe a month ago. I've had a chance. Allah blessed me. I was able to make Hajj last year. I've been able to do some amazing things as I grow and I learn. So it's been a very humbling experience as a Muslim. Allah has really smiled upon me. Of course, Allah has been testing me quite a bit as a new Muslim and being able to do all of these cool things. Allah tests the believers. So sometimes things get very challenging for me. But I'm a part of an organization called Muslims Giving Back in New York. We're very small and very powerful. We were one of the, we feed every week, Friday and Saturday, we feed close to 400 homeless people Friday and Saturday. We work together to a volunteer base. We don't have any money. We look us up, Muslims Giving Back in New York City. We go, we deal with the sisters. We let the sisters buy the food. The sisters cook the food. We buy the utensils and fruit and water and stuff. And we go out all in New York City and spread out our world. We break up into teams. We feed about 200 per day, 200 on Friday, 200 on Saturday. And, you know, we really tight. We go out and we do a lot of different things. We go out in Howard, Times Square. We've just been an unbelievable small team. We're very powerful. We make the news. We've changed quite a few brothers' lives. We recently took a homeless brother, and I'm only just sharing these things to show you some of the things that we're doing. But there was a homeless brother we met in a park one day. He happened to be a Muslim, African-American brother. He'd been homeless a long time. We took the brother, cleaned him up, put him in a hotel for about 3 days. He didn't realize what we were doing. We asked him to videotape his testimony, his struggles of a Muslim, and his struggles of being homeless. He didn't realize that we had put on an event. About 800 Muslims showed up, and we brought him. He didn't know what was going on. We had a screen like that. We played his testimony. We raised like $3-4 grand for him. We actually got him housing. We got Muslims came up. We had some Muslims give the brother a job. So that's one person we got off the street. So I'm a lot for that. So these are the type of things that we're doing. I'm part of another organization called the Canadian Dawah Association. I go back and forth to Canada. Basically, it's all Dawah. So I travel all over the world just trying to give Dawah as I learn and become a more knowledgeable Muslim. And give giving dawah part is necessary. I share my story, and I've had quite a few Muslims accept Islam, quite a few non-Muslims accept Islam through my story, follow me on Facebook. So I'm very humbled, I'm very thankful, I'm very happy that Allah has smiled upon me to be able to share my story and touch people, because many of us are influenced by the lifestyle and by the artists and the public figures and the money and these kind of things, but I'm a living example of, you know, it's not the, it's a smoke screen, man. It's not really a lifestyle I suggest to anybody. It's a really, really dark lifestyle. But I can continue to go on. I'd really like to open up the floor for some of you guys. Questions? Ask me any questions, please. Feel free. There's nothing getting asked whatever. Anybody? What's up?
How do people in the music industry react to your lifestyle change?
You know what? It's pretty interesting. Like, people in the music industry, many of them, they can, you know, it's either yeah or nay. It's like, you know, they just happy that I'm doing something that I'm happy with, and some of them it's just kind of like it doesn't really matter. It's just like, you know, I you guys take care. But out of sight, out of mind, because many of these brothers they're multi-millionaires, man. And they when you out of the circle, you kind of like forgotten until you come around, because like these guys they got a lot of families, people they take care of. They have multiple responsibilities. So, but some of them I wish me well, and that's about it. I don't really expect too much from them. But many of them. They lost, man. So many of them, they lost. They're searching for happiness. Come on, man. I know many of you got tons of questions.
So you're mentioning about how people are kind of giving you advice, but not in a good way. What's a good way to give advice? Or like someone who's giving you advice and it really helped you in a way that it did?
Meaning Muslims? Yeah,
just like.
You know what? That's a tough one. I would say some of the advice was because even now, like sometimes I struggle with accepting advice, because a lot of Muslims they know my story and they know that I'm still a new Muslim and they know that I'm learning. Sometimes it's tough for me because so many Muslims want to give me advice, and I'm not always open to taking Muslim advice. I mean, I'm really not. Only because like, you know, everyone's advice is different, and I don't know whose advice is authentic or where they're getting their knowledge from, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes I can be a little defensive on that, and Allah help me with that. But you know, some brothers will come and they'll give me advice of just like how to handle when other brothers are giving me advice, or how to handle staying away from certain things, how to handle like growing as in my research and my knowledge as a Muslim. So I mean, it's give or take. I mean, I'm still trying to learn and filter out what's good advice and what's not myself, to be honest with you. So I don't really know if that answers it or not, but it's still a learning process to me to filter it out, to be honest with you.
I mean, what was a good way you did it? Like, how did they explain it?
I've had brothers bring me into their fold, in their circle, and brothers who take me to dinner, brothers who privately talk to me, brothers who send me emails. I mean, you know, there's times where I've had brothers try to give me advice open and publicly, and sometimes like, or out in like a public forum, and sometimes, you know, we as people can be defensive sometimes. And I know I can be at times, and it's something that I have to work on. And sometimes I don't welcome it, you know, and it's taken as egotistical, or I even humble myself, but sometimes I don't think everybody's advice is the best for me. Because I've had brothers' advice, their advice is cultural. It's not my culture. So you know, and now I've been to about 9 Muslim countries. Sometimes I can identify with things in cultural things. I'm not an expert. You know, there are times where brothers just embrace me with hope, and most times it's like that. That's a real time. So, Allah make it easy.
What was your family's reaction?
Oh, my family's reaction, man, brother. That's been a challenge, man. Honestly, my my mother and my brother accepted. My brother studied religion in college. That's pretty, he was pretty okay, but my mom took her some time. She was okay, but my grandmother, she was okay because my grandmother was just happy with the fact of me finding Allah on the door, creator, whatever she wanted to refer to it as, because when she was living, I just kind of, I believed, but I didn't really, I put all my efforts into money at the time. So, but most of my family, I had family members spit at me and curse me. I had many of my family members, they don't talk to me because I'm Muslim. Many of my family members do not like Muslims because of ignorance, because of terrorism and stuff like that. They all say that terrorists and Muslims, this and that. So it was very challenging me from the beginning to understand. I really didn't know how to deal with it because I came to Islam without any help really, and then when I embraced Islam, I didn't really have many people to really like learn from. Like I had the one brother I mentioned, but it wasn't as often as I would like it to be. So I was kind of, I felt like I was kind of alone as I was learning Islam. So I got beat up quite a bit verbally from family and other people because I was openly Muslim. Like I started wearing a kufi because it was helping me to identify with like keeping my iman high. You know, like I wore a kufi with intentions of like it was a reminder for me, and then it just became like uniform because before I wore baseball caps and all that, but when I wore the kufi for the first time, I was like,